So I was taking the time to think about where all we see leaders in our society. And because the answer to that question is everywhere, I started thinking about more who influenced me and the leader that I am today. I considered politicians, teachers, scientists, motivational speakers, actors, even. But ultimately, I came down to the thought that I am a person who grew up playing sports. So I came into contact with tons of different leaders just through my coaches. And now some were incredibly inspiring individuals and others not so much, but they still gave me the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. Um, and so then I began thinking about coaches that we all look up to, or at least a lot of us look up to in this country, especially, and that happens to be those of American sports teams. And so that's where I truly began my search. And when I did that, I came across this one name time and time again, and it was that of Golden State Warrior head coach Steve Kerr. And so when the Warriors brought him on, they had been going on a losing streak since 1975. But the second they brought him on in 2014, they attended every championship round from 2014 to 2019. So he has a pretty good record so far. He was able to surpass countless NBA records, including most wins, highest winning percentage, all in his rookie year. And just because he started coaching in 2014 does not mean by any means that that's when his career in the game started. Um, in fact, he has a pretty long history with the game. In as a player, he was with the Chicago Bulls and the San Antonio Spurs, two teams that have incredible legacies of winning and are known for their styles of leadership. He then went on to serve as a general manager for the Phoenix Suns. And then he took a step back and became a sports analyst for TNT. And then by the time the Golden State Warriors had actually reached out to him, he was retired. He was done. But even technically, if we want to get more specific than that, he had started his career even 15 years prior than being an actual player, because he was a ball boy for the UCLA Bruins under incredible coach John Wooden. And the reason why I think that mentioning his entire history is so important is because you can see that his entire career has been influenced by some of the most revered coaches in the nation. Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, Lenny Wilkins, Lute Olson, Cotton Fitzsimmons, and of course, John Wooden. Um, and a commonality between all of these men is that in their very successful careers, they had come to learn and instill the idea that winning isn't necessarily determined by the score. Now, what exactly winning was is not a common consensus between any of them. Some of them thought it was the relationship that you had with your players and your team. Others thought that it was the fact that you were investing into the futures and the careers of the players. John Wooden was also a poetry guy and an English professor in his time at UCLA. And he believed that winning was solely based in the heart and the effort that you put into the game every day. So there's some debate there for sure. But that all goes to say that Steve Kerr went into his own coaching career backed by an entire legacy of influential leaders before him. Um, and even without them, he was packing a lot of skills of his own, one being himself. He had incredibly genuine relationships with everybody on the team. Everybody loved to be around him because of the energy and authenticity that he brings with him everywhere he goes. He was willing to be silly and serious and whatever the situation demanded, and it wasn't uncommon to see him dancing on the court or hugging players or cracking jokes with refs. He had this amazing energy that just made him magnetic, makes him magnetic. And another thing that he brings with him is this keen sense of awareness. Um, it almost kind of looks like modesty just because he's fully aware of the fact that so many people have gone in and contributed to his style of coaching and what he knows. And he knows that his ideas may not always be what leads to that winning shot. And so he took this awareness into the game with him. On his very first day, he immediately sought to instill this culture of open debate, willingness to contribute, and it's a setting where everyone's ideas are valued and everyone gets credit. And in fact, some of the most pivotal moments in his coaching career weren't even sourced from his own ideas. For example, Game 4, 2015 finals, the Warriors were down, and he wasn't really sure what to do because he wasn't making the right calls for some reason. The team wasn't responding. So he turned to his assistant coaches and he asked, "What are you seeing? What am I missing?" And one of the newer additions to his coaching staff, his name was Nick Uren, who's 28 years old at the time, suggested that they pull everyone off and completely reorder the starting lineup. And without missing a beat, Kerr called the team in and did just that. And it was an incredibly dramatic move, but it ended up leading to their first championship for the team in 40 years. Um, Later, Steve again was having trouble developing a vision and motivating his team. So, with thorough consideration, during a game against his very own Phoenix Suns, he handed the playboard over to the players. And as I said before, so many of their practices and plays were the product of debate and collaboration. And it was because of this that Kerr felt comfortable with stepping back. But in doing this, he empowered them to lead themselves. Warriors took that game 40 points in the lead, and that was that. He knew that they were absolutely capable of leading themselves and was really should have been very pleased with his coaching ability to make sure that he's also investing in their knowledge of the game, their careers, so on and so forth. But Kerr has this incredible ability to recognize a changing environment. And with the support of those around him, he provides these highly inventive strategies that are both respected by coaches around the world and have brought the Warriors to win championships in 2015, 2017, and 2018. But like I said, many coaches agree that winning shouldn't be and isn't the main priority all the time. And so there's a lot of focus that happens in the relationships that a coach has with the team, and the willingness to learn, all of which just play an equal part in the game. So, in lieu of several injuries that happened with some of the stars on the team, and in addition to bringing several rookies on in the last draft, the 2019-2020 season didn't bode very well for them. That was, of course, before circumstances related to COVID-19 brought all NBA operations to a halt. But before that, they were sitting at a record of 15 wins and 50 losses, which one might expect Kerr to kind of be upset with that record. But in an interview with sports broadcaster Bob Fitzgerald, Kerr sounded pretty optimistic, actually. Having this season and this time to focus on the development to those new additions, those rookies on the team, he was giving them time to watch their careers blossom. And not only did that happen, but it also gave Kerr the opportunity to navigate coaching younger people, which he hadn't had all that much experience with in the past. Um, that said, he recognized that it was something new and that he maybe didn't know it all the way and that there would be a learning curve. So he was constantly taking notes and referring back to his assistant coaches. Those are Mike Brown and Ron Adams. And he did this so that when the season eventually does recommence, he can lead the entire team more cohesively and everybody can be more holistically filled out as a player. And they can know multiple different positions and apply those skills in every single game, because the game is once again constantly evolving and one skill set isn't necessarily the best skill set. So by cultivating multiple skills, he is taking losses in the short term in order to invest in the opportunities that he's seeing in the long term, which is an incredible skill to have as a leader, and especially a risky thing to take as a coach, just because a lot of coaches do undervalue those connections and that investment. So he is really taking a valuable perspective with that. But Steve Kerr has had this entire lifetime in the sport of basketball. And in that time, he has cultivated his ability to make sense of constantly changing environments and is aware of how he can contribute to those environments and is also very aware of when he needs to lean on the strengths of those around him. He celebrates those strengths as well, both publicly for the press and in the form of richly empathic connections that he has with every last man on his bench as well as on the court. Um, and whether he knows it or not, he is essentially working from the book of leadership from authors like Daniel Goleman, Deborah Ancona, Thomas Malone, Wanda Orgolowinski, and Peter Senge. Steve Kerr is an exemplary model of a leader and has recently begun exploring what his leadership looks like off the court as well. And he is really taking on a strong role on the board of directors for the Peace Players International Coalition, which is an organization based in Washington, D.C., that uses basketball as a means to bridge cultural gaps in areas where there is political, religious, and racial conflict. And he's also been using his platform, his time in front of the media, and various conversations, various connections to start speaking out against things like gun violence and other things that he's really passionate about. So I anticipate that he will contribute greatly to a stronger society and a stronger culture as we move forward and hopefully get us all a winning record. Thank you. I am Zoe Romyn, and this is my TED Talk.